Okay. People are saying that the volume is quite low, so I'm gonna increase my volume a bit and just see if that's better. I hope that that's better. Okay. Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Shukran for attending part 2 of the Nurturing Roots and Strengthening Family Mental Health with myself, Sumaya Khan, and Mariam Sali as your hosts or presenters. We're both clinical psychologists that work with families and different areas of families as well. Today is part 2, and we will be focusing on nurturing happy, healthy children and looking at positive parenting strategies. Please feel free to add questions either to the Q&A or the chat as we go along, and we will go through and answer all your questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, Bismillah, let's start. We'll begin by discussing the different parenting styles. In part 1 of this webinar series last week, we discussed how an individual's own childhood experiences and personality can result in these different parenting styles. Today, we are going to look at how they play out in parenting itself. Parenting styles have a distinct, play a big role on the child's development, shaping their personality, behavior, and their future. And we are going to look at the 4 primary parenting styles and their effects. First one we're looking at is the authoritarian parenting style. They tend to have high expectations and demands, providing little to no nurturing and limited communication. The emphasis of this type of parenting is obedience and compliance. This results in short-term positives, as at a younger age, you will find the child being compliant and obedient as there is the need to please the parent. However, as they get older, the potential for rebellious behavior increases. It will affect their academics as well as their behavior and social relationships. They will have difficulty regulating their emotions, and this will result in low self-esteem and confidence and emotional difficulties such as increased aggression, anxiety, and or depression. The decrease in social competence and difficulty accepting criticism will also lead to challenges in the workplace and with all authority figures. And these challenges can often increase the risk of substance abuse and delinquency. Just before we move on to the next parenting style, I just meant to say that you might find us repeating a lot of things as we go along. And that also speaks to parenting styles because it all fits together. There's all the different areas, but at the end of the day, they all fit together as positive parenting, and they nurture a lot of the similar areas of your child's development. So that would be why you may find us repeating things at times, but we are going to try to not to reduce the repetition as much as possible, also to save time. Okay. The next parenting style we look at is the authoritative parenting style, which has a more balanced approach. It demonstrates warmth, open communication, fostering independence and self-regulation. Their style helps to develop problem-solving skills and promote emotional intelligence by providing stability with clear boundaries and reasonable expectations. This is done by using positive reinforcement, praise and rewards, practicing active listening and empathy, encouraging self-expression, providing constructive feedback, not criticism, and modeling responsible behavior. It results in children developing healthy self-esteem and social skills, better academic performance, emotional regulation, and reduced behavioral challenges. Children are more resilient and independent, and the ability to develop and maintain healthy relationships improves, including stronger bonds with parent-child bonds, including stronger parent-child bonds. Implementing authoritative parenting should ideally begin in early childhood, like the toddler stage, and parents should be consistent and patient and practice mindfulness and self-regulation. They should be as flexible and adaptable as possible and prioritize quality time with your children. Mariam will explain the next parenting style.
So the next parenting style is permissive parenting. This is parenting that is lenient with few to no boundaries and excessive indulgence. So there's high levels of warmth and nurturing, but low levels of control and boundaries. They are emotionally expressive and empathetic, but they do avoid conflict or confrontation. And there's a tendency to prioritize the child's happiness over responsibility. So permissive parents, they avoid setting clear boundaries and rules. They rarely discipline their children or punish or put consequences in place. They focus on the child's happiness. And of course, the problem with that is that children do not know how to set healthy limits or boundaries for themselves. The permissive parents can also be overly responsive to the child's demands, and they often give in to tantrums or demands. And so the effects on the children is that there's increased entitlement, there's arrogance and dependence, and there's no respect for authority figures. There's also no sense of accountability and responsibility. There's poor self-regulation skills, and there's impulse control issues, and there's a high need for immediate gratification and an inability to tolerate delayed gratification. And we often see this, especially where children are, used to getting what they want from parents. And so they struggle when they have to wait for something. And even, if this kind of parenting was practiced when children were younger, you'll sometimes still see the consequences, even when they are older, where they struggle with something like delayed gratification. There's also potential for substance abuse and behavioral issues with permissive parenting. And obviously, as we said, a struggle with the ability to regulate themselves in a healthy way. There's also they experience anxiety and insecurity due to the lack of clear boundaries, and they have poor academic and performance or motivation. Because of course, the children require the boundaries and the rules and structure in order to feel secure. Then we have neglectful, or also called uninvolved parenting. So this is characterized by lack of involvement, support, or guidance, where the parent is emotionally unavailable and basic needs are not met. This includes physical, emotional, and social. There's also inconsistent discipline and boundaries, and here the parents prioritize their personal needs or interests over the child's well-being. So this is where there is low levels of warmth and nurturing, and also low levels of control and boundaries. And when we say control here, we do not mean over control or controlling, but rather just that there are structures in place, for the child's security, rules and structures within the family system. There's minimal involvement in the child's life, and there's a lack of responsiveness to the child's needs, prioritizing obviously their own needs over the children's. Children who have been parented with this kind of parenting style, they develop low self-esteem and confidence. There's usually poor academic performance and a lack of motivation. They have difficulty with emotion regulation and relationships. There's low impulse control. This means they are quite impulsive, so not thinking before doing things, but just, responding to impulses. Difficulty with respecting, setting, and maintaining boundaries. So difficulty respecting others' boundaries, difficulty setting their own boundaries, and difficulty maintaining boundaries within relationships. Also an increased risk of behavioral problems and substance use, a struggle with social relationships and friendships. There's a risk for behavioral problems like aggression and delinquency, and it's decreased academic motivation and achievement. Also keep in mind that these styles exist on a spectrum, and parents may exhibit different styles depending on the circumstances. Sumaya, you're on mute.
As I was saying to myself, there are many strategies for improving parenting styles. So we will be going into detail with some of these. I'm just going to give a basic One of them is self-reflection, identifying your parenting values, strengths, and areas of improvement, which is really important because if you can recognize what you need to do as a parent, it's going to make it that much better to then pass that over to your children. Communicate with your partner, ensure to align parenting approaches and address conflicts. This also speaks to the co-parenting plan that we mentioned in part 1, and how to manage your different parenting styles and find like a middle ground. Practice emotional intelligence, recognize and manage your emotions so that you can better parent and help manage your child's emotions. Set clear boundaries, establish clear and consistent expectations and consequences. We are going to talk about that in more detail in a little bit. Active listening, engage with your child, encourage healthy and open communication so that they will also feel able to come to you and speak to you because they can see that you are open to listening to them as well. Validate emotions, acknowledge your child's emotions and experiences, which is going to help them to, again, feel safe and willing to share with you. Positive reinforcement, encourage good behavior with praise and non-monetary rewards. It's important to be flexible and adapt parenting approaches as your child grows, changes, and moves through the different developmental stages. We'll also be speaking more about that a bit later to help you understand the different developmental stages and what's required. And seek support. Join parenting groups, consult therapists, follow parenting blogs or social media pages, and we will give you a few resources with regard to that at the end. There are some specific factors to consider for positive parenting. Firstly, your child's temperament. Temperament refers to innate aspects of the individual's personality, and their nature or their way of doing things. The temperament doesn't usually change over time, even though we sometimes adjust or cope to the environments. They are also dependent on their developmental stages. Therefore, it is important to tailor your parenting to the child's age and developmental phase. Remember that as your child grows and is in different stages of development, their needs, behaviors, and emotional intelligence and communication will also change. You have to also consider your child's individual educational needs, as they may often have different learning styles, and you need to consider how best to approach them. Keep in mind if your child has special needs or disabilities, etc., and ensure that you have access to the appropriate education and resources and the best educational environment for your individual child's needs. Personal stress management is also very important. Prioritize self-care, ensuring that you are taking care of your mental well-being, which will make you more capable of putting positive parenting styles into practice. Unfortunately, there are sometimes circumstances that result in having to co-parent with an uncooperative partner. It is of utmost importance to set boundaries and prioritize your child's well-being. That always needs to be the priority, which means putting your feelings for each other aside and focusing on your child's best interest. Establish a co-parenting plan or agreement to assist with consistency and stability for the child, and recognize any neglectful and harmful parenting and be proactive in seeking the appropriate help to address it. I see someone put up their hand. Please note if you have any questions. We are going to respond to all questions at the end of the presentation. Okay, with regards to cultural influences, it refers to the implicit and explicit values and rules derived from an individual's heritage, religious community, and societal values. it's important to bring that into your parenting, to encourage your child to encompass morals and values that you uphold and you would like them to uphold. If these values are taught or modeled in a positive, encouraging way, rather than forceful and demanding, it's more likely that your child will learn to love, respect, and appreciate them. Family and community support is important in ensuring a safe, supportive, and stable family and community environment. And it also plays a vital role in developing strong family bonds and the ability to create and nurture healthy social and intimate relationships. Lastly, are the social and extracurricular needs. Having healthy peer relationships and appropriate socialization is paramount to developing lifelong social skills. Ensure that your children have access to social and extracurricular activities that are within their interests and strengths. Allow them the opportunity to engage and explore as many interests as possible when they're young so that they can find what they enjoy and continue building on those abilities and interests. Often parents get caught up in wanting to live vicariously through their children and living out their own dreams. Remember to always focus on your child's interests and strengths and listen to what their desires are and what they would like to engage in. It is more likely that they will excel at activities that they have a passion for rather than something that they feel forced to do.
So in part one, we discussed managing conflict as a couple, which is also crucial for maintaining a healthy relationship and effective co-parenting. But here are also some strategies for conflict resolution as parents. Number one, always prioritize the child's needs. Prioritize the child's needs and well-being, putting aside your own differences. Consider the long-term effects of the conflict, on the child's well-being. Try to seek common ground. Also, we need to, I know the last point speaks about seek mediation, but we need to also normalize sometimes getting input from a neutral third party if we find that we are struggling to come to common ground, to find common ground together. Number two, communicate effectively, communicate clearly and respectfully. Consider using I statements instead of you statements. So I feel frustrated when I've given a suggestion and it's not considered for whatever needs to be done. So use I statements instead of you statements. It opens up communication. Practice active listening, as we mentioned last week. Practice active listening by paying attention to the person, listening to understand, making sure that you understand what the person is trying to communicate. Avoid blame and criticism. It's very easy sometimes when we do come across challenges that we tend to blame each other, as parents, as partners, but let's try to avoid the blame and criticism and focus on the issue at hand, setting clear expectations. Establish and set clear boundaries, define the roles. It may sound like a simple thing, but it's something that we don't usually communicate about. So define roles and expectations for each partner, what each partner is responsible for. This will also help if you have defined roles and responsibilities, and setting realistic expectations. If one partner is, working from 9 to 5 and working in town, and the child's going to school in Plumstead, for example, then one needs to consider that they're working far and they're working till a certain time and perhaps wouldn't be able to pick up the child. So when you do define the roles and responsibilities, let's work on realistic expectations from each other. But it's a negotiation, and sometimes I compromise, sometimes you compromise, but we work and negotiate together. Respect each other's time and space as well. Manage disagreements, recognize and regulate our own emotions. We're going to say this every time, because if you are not able to recognize what you are feeling and manage and regulate yourself, whatever you're feeling is going to, force its way into the conversation, and then it will affect, being able to have a respectful communication with each other. So recognize and regulate your own emotions and avoid reacting impulsively. We want to respond, which means that we take our time, we think about things before we respond, rather than reacting impulsively without thinking. Take breaks when necessary. If you're having a conversation and you're trying to decide on something, or you're working on a particular conflict or disagreement, and you find that, things are feeling a bit heated, take a break, or take a walk, make a cup of tea, come back to the conversation. We don't always have to, sort things out in one go. We can take breaks in between if it's going to help regulate the conversation and to keep the emotions at bay. Maintain consistency. And also when we're trying to, manage the disagreements, we also have to remember to collaborate and compromise with each other. So seeking mutually beneficial solutions and be flexible and open-minded so that because we're both working towards the same thing at the end of the day. We want to prioritize the child's well-being. So we're on the same team and we must remember that. So find areas of agreement, but be open and flexible to hear each other out and to come to an agreement that is the best for the child at the end of the day. Maintain consistency, align your parenting values and styles, because when parents have different styles and different values, at the end of the day, it confuses the child, and the child is the one that suffers from that misalignment. So find common ground, or create a value system that encompasses both your values and a way to parent in a unified way so that the child doesn't suffer at the end of the day. Maintain consistency and show respect towards each other and give each other a hearing. And then, of course, it goes without saying to treat each other respectfully, but more so when we're trying to resolve a conflict, because this is when our emotions sometimes, get charged and sometimes they overtake us or they overwhelm us. And so it's difficult in those moments to maintain the respect. But it's very important that we try to remember that we're on the same team and that we're trying to, prioritize the child's well-being at the end of the day. Use conflict resolution techniques. This means consider things like first try to problem solve together. But if you find that you are struggling, then consider mediation, consider input, consider resources that can assist you with getting to solving the disagreements at hand. So although, positive parenting techniques, they focus on nurturing, they focus on empathy and mutual respect to promote healthy development. These are some of the core principles. Number one, validating emotions. Number two, encouraging independence and resilience. Number three, setting clear boundaries. Number four, modeling positive behavior. And you would notice that we will use the word modeling quite often throughout the presentation, because this is one of the most important I would say responsibilities of parents is to model to children how to do things, how to resolve conflict, how to set boundaries, how to communicate openly. So we model the behavior to the children. So whatever behavior it is that you want to see in children, don't tell them what to do. You need to show them. You show them through modeling. So if you want them to be respectful, you have to model that respectful behavior. If you want them to communicate openly with you, you need to model that to them as well. Number five, fostering a growth mindset. Number six, practicing active listening. We spoke about it last week. Number seven, showing physical affection to our children, hugging them, kissing them. And number eight, encouraging open communication. And although all of these core principles are important, we obviously cannot discuss all of them in a short period of time. So instead, we're going to focus on the techniques for building resilient children, and also how to set clear and healthy boundaries, because we find that this is sometimes one of the key things that we find that parents struggle with, and that actually, has so many consequences in the family system, is the lack of healthy and appropriate boundaries. So we're going to focus on those two things for tonight's presentation.
Okay. When looking at positive parenting techniques, one of the things, these are some of the important things to look at. We're going to just build on what we spoke about. Using positive reinforcement rather than negative reinforcement is a much more powerful and effective technique to encourage desired behaviors, improve performance, and enhance overall well-being. It boosts self-esteem and confidence and increases motivation. It also reduces stress and anxiety by focusing on positive outcomes, and fosters resilience as it encourages the child to develop coping skills and bounce back from setbacks. Instead of focusing on misbehavior, rather redirect your attention to positive alternatives. focusing on finding solutions and teaching your children that there are other ways to respond to an overwhelming situation. For example, if your child's throwing a tantrum or throwing their toys around, you should provide a safe space for them to express their emotions, encourage verbally expressing their feelings, teach deep breathing to help calm the nervous system. Another example is instead of, if they're refusing to share, encourage generosity and kindness, set clear expectations for sharing and turn taking, which will also teach empathy. It's important for your child to experience natural consequences. Do not try to shield your children from the consequences of misbehavior. It is important to their development that they experience the consequences of their actions. This holds them accountable and builds a sense of responsibility. If not, the message you are sending them is that their misbehavior is acceptable, and this results often in entitled and irresponsible people as they grow, who believe that they can get away with anything. Active ignoring is a behavioral technique and used to manage challenging and undesired behaviors. This is done by intentionally ignoring the undesired behavior while reinforcing the positive behaviors. For example, if your child throws a toy to get attention, you will identify the misbehavior by saying, "We do not throw toys." You will remain calm and withhold any further response or attention. So do not interact further, do not even make any eye contact. Once the child sees that they're being ignored, they will generally begin playing calmly and you will praise them. "Oh, wow, you're playing so nicely with your toys. That looks like so much fun. Good job." You can then interact further with them, providing positive attention and reinforcing the desired behavior. This can be an extremely effective tool, but it requires consistency and patience. Okay. With regards to emotional intelligence, the best way to teach emotional regulation is through emotional coaching. When your child is feeling overwhelmed, use that as a teaching opportunity. Create a safe space by going down to their level, make eye contact, talk to them calmly, and help them by recognizing and validating their emotions. Express understanding of their needs and concerns, and show them that they're not being judged but supported. This develops emotional intelligence, self awareness, and self regulation. It's important to talk through problems together, helping them consider solutions, gently guide them by offering choices rather than telling them what to do. This encourages critical thinking and autonomy. Practicing mindful parenting is not only about teaching your children how to self regulate and be self aware, but it is also about you as a parent being mindful in your presence, your tone, body language, actively listening, fully engaging in activities, being conscious of the language you use, practicing gratitude and appreciation, and also being compassionate and forgiving to yourself as a parent. Additional strategies that we can look at are gratitude practices. This can include encouraging your child to write a gratitude journal. You can also do the same, as you mentioned, modeling, going around the dinner table and each family member naming one thing they were grateful for in the day, or making it part of the bedtime routine. With younger children, that can work quite effectively. Positive self-talk is essential for parents as it boosts confidence, reduces stress and anxiety, enhances self-awareness, improves relationships with your children, and fosters resilience. Using confident and self-affirming language for yourself in the presence of your children will help them foster a positive attitude, build mental toughness, and view challenges as opportunities for growth. When speaking to your children in positive self-talk, a few examples is something like, "I'm so proud of you, you're doing your best, and that's amazing. I know you can do it, and mistakes are okay, we learn from them," etc. Use statements that acknowledge and validate the other person's feelings. thoughts or experiences. For example, I can see that you're feeling frustrated, or I can imagine how overwhelmed you're feeling, or it's okay to feel angry about that, or simply, I'm here for you, I'm listening. Sometimes that's all your child needs, is just to know that you're there. Be fully engaged when playing with your children. Let them know that you value and enjoy playtime, and be active in that play, not passive, not just watching them, but actually being a part of it. Quality time is really important. Set aside time for your family, or even one on one time to engage with each child when possible. Engage and connect. Also, have family time like games nights or pizza making nights, and no phones allowed. You need to be fully present in those moments. Always be consistent, as consistency reinforces the tools that you are trying to teach your child, and it gives them a sense of stability. I won't go too much into role modeling because Maria mentioned that and the importance of you modeling for your child, but the modeling of self-care is really important. You know, make time for that massage, or getting your hair done, or playing your favorite sport, having me time. I know this may seem impossible in our busy lives, but supporting each other as partners is, you can allow each other for time for self-care, while one look after the kids and you allow the other one to go do something for themselves, or you get a babysitter and do something together, or you reach out to family or friends to like look after your kids or arrange a play date, and then you go do something for yourself during that time. It's very important for your well-being and for you to be a present and positive parent. Teaching self advocacy is essential to helping your child develop the skills and confidence they need to express their needs, wants, and feelings effectively. It will also teach them how to set boundaries, understand consent, and to assert themselves so they are not taken advantage of. We'll talk more about this when we cover the setting boundaries area. Also, always encourage empathy and kindness for them to understand that they must treat each other the way they would like to be treated.
So, of course, the benefits of all of this is that there will be stronger parent-child relationships. There will be improved behavior, acceptable behavior. There's an increase in the self-esteem of the child, and obviously the increase in confidence, better emotional regulation. The child will be able to regulate themselves better. Enhanced cognitive development, so enhanced ability, thinking skills. Reduced aggression, improved mental health, increased resilience, and healthy development overall. And then building resilience, of course, we said we can focus on resilience and boundaries. So building resilience is crucial for emotional, social, and academic development. The key components of resilience is self-awareness, emotion regulation, optimism, adaptability, problem solving, and social support. Self-awareness refers to the ability to recognize and understand one's thoughts, one's feelings, and behavior. And it's important because self-awareness helps children identify their strengths, their struggles, their own emotions, and enables them to make informed decisions and develop emotional intelligence. So to encourage self-reflection, we could ask open-ended questions like, how did you feel today? And also encourage children to expand, because I think that sometimes you ask and you get one-word answers. So I know that I sometimes ask my son, how was school today? And he says it was fun. And then I'll ask him what was fun about it. So ask open-ended questions to allow them to actually give you more detail. Label and validate emotions. So we spoke about the modeling, and how you do it is if you recognize something, you label it and you validate it. So you seem upset. It's okay to feel sad. Teach emotional vocabulary. Help children identify and express emotion by you labeling and naming the emotion and acknowledging it. Model self-awareness. Again, show your own thoughts and your own feelings about things. Practice mindfulness. Engage children in mindfulness activities such as deep breathing, just giving them the sometimes also tool just how to regulate themselves when they are feeling overwhelmed. Then emotional regulation involves managing and modulating emotions to achieve emotional balance. This simply means that, just the ability to understand what you are feeling, why you're perhaps feeling it, and then how to manage the feeling in that moment so that it doesn't become overwhelming. So emotional regulation helps children to cope with stress, with anxiety, with adversity. Like we said, you can teach different techniques, and obviously there's lots of resources where you can get more techniques, but some of the simple ones is the deep breathing or aggressive muscle relaxation, which helps to relax the body if it is feeling overwhelmed. Encouraging physical activity, because exercise also helps regulate emotions. Model emotional regulation, demonstrate calm and composed behavior, practice empathy, validating your child's emotions, so understanding what they're feeling and acknowledging it, validating it, even if you don't understand in the moment, but the important thing is to validate what they are feeling and then, you know, have a conversation about it. And this will also, again, teach them how to acknowledge others' emotions and practice empathy. Set clear boundaries and routines, so establish predictability. Boundaries and routines, rules and schedules are so important for children's development. It helps them feel secure, it helps them know what is happening, and it helps them with feeling safe in the environment. And then optimism, it involves maintaining a positive outlook and expecting good outcomes. Optimism helps children develop resilience to cope with adversity and to maintain motivation. So essentially, it helps them to also be hopeful. Foster positive self-talk, as Sumaya has said, encourage positive affirmations. And I just want to point out here that I think I, more than Sumaya, work with older adults. And I can tell you that it's much more difficult to help adults restructure or reframe their thinking and to change how they think about themselves as an adult than to teach this to children when they are younger. It is easy to teach it to children when they are younger and for them to grow up with that kind of, thinking than to have to, at 40, 50, try to teach adults how to change the way they think about themselves. It is extremely difficult. So try to encourage positive self-talk with children. Focus on the child's strengths, so emphasize their abilities and their accomplishments. And I think even the language that we use when we talk about struggles or challenges, to be mindful about the kind of language we use when we talk about a child's struggle or things that they'd like to work on. Practice gratitude. So again, model to the child. If you want them to understand gratitude, you also have to model and show how to be thankful about, how to identify things that you're thankful for. Reframe negative thoughts. Help your child reframe negative thoughts into constructive ones. Celebrate their successes. So acknowledge and celebrate achievements, but also acknowledge their progress. Acknowledge when they have put in effort. We don't want to only focus on achievement, because then children focus on that achievement as the benchmark. They also need to know that struggling and progressing is also something that can be celebrated. Then adaptability. Adaptability involves adjusting to changing situations and circumstances. This is, of course, important for life because there are always things happening. We always have to adjust and be adaptable in different situations. So it helps children cope with uncertainty and unexpected events. Encourage flexibility, teach them how to adjust plans and how to cope with the adjustment in the plans. Model adaptability, so demonstrate flexibility. If something doesn't go according to plan, model how using flexibility helps you to just cope with whatever change has happened. Practice problem solving, encourage the child to generate solutions, and as Maya mentioned, to guide them, help give them options to help them develop that ability to problem solve. Teach coping skills, help the child develop strategies for dealing with change. Foster curiosity, encourage exploration and learning, because when there are changes in the plans, there are adjustments that have to be made. It's also an opportunity to learn. So encourage them to explore and learn when these things do happen. Problem solving, that involves identifying and resolving challenges. This is something that is so crucial, again, for children, for them when they become adults, because of course, as we know, we are raising our children, guiding them, developing them, not for ourselves, but for their future lives. So problem solving is one of those skills that is essential for life. It helps children develop critical thinking, decision-making, and resilience. So encourage critical thinking by asking open-ended questions. Allow them to also come up with solutions and to think about things. Teach problem-solving steps, identifying the problem, brainstorming solutions, testing those solutions, and then evaluating which ones work best. Model problem-solving, so demonstrate thoughtful decision-making, how to take in all the information that is necessary in order to come to a decision. Practice role playing. You can simulate real life scenarios and get them to think about how they would deal with those situations. Foster independence, encourage the child to take ownership of their problems and be there as a guide and as a support. Social support involves having a network of caring relationships. It is important because social support helps children develop emotional resilience, trust, and security. So foster positive relationships, encourage strong bonds with family and friends, teach social skills, encourage empathy and communication. Your parents are your first relationships and then your siblings. And these relationships become the templates for your relationships later on. And so fostering healthy relationships with your children and guiding them to have healthy relationships with their siblings, if they have siblings, this will help them with relationships later on in their lives. So model healthy relationships, demonstrate respect and kindness and compassion and love, open communication and showing empathy to each other, encourage community involvement, participate in group activities, provide emotional validation, listen actively, and offer support. So strategies to build resilience. So obviously, as we said, we model resilience, demonstrate coping skills, positivity, encourage effort and progress, not just success, as we mentioned, teach problem solving and decision making. So help children to think about it themselves, not just telling them what the answer is, foster social connections between friends and family, develop emotional intelligence, recognize and managing their own emotions, practice mindfulness and self-care, encourage learning from failures or rather challenges or difficulties, provide opportunities for independence, for them doing things for themselves, offer positive reinforcement. This builds healthy behavior, and then teach coping skills. There's lots of resources that we will share, and you can teach your children skills they can use in order to help them cope with challenging situations.
Okay, as mentioned earlier, children have different needs and ways of understanding at different developmental stages. So I'm just going to talk you through some age-specific strategies of building resilience to help your children understand which strategies would be appropriate, to help you, understand which would be appropriate at different stages of your child's life. With toddlers, that's between the age of 1 to 3, it's important to provide a safe environment for exploration, encourage independence, and model emotional regulation. For preschoolers, age 4 to 5, teaching problem solving skills, encouraging social interactions, and modeling that resilience is really important. When we look at your preteens, it's important to start developing and foster self-awareness, encourage self-regulation, and teach coping skills. For your teenagers, it's important to encourage self-reflection so they can get a sense of how their behavior has consequences and learning how to deal with those things. Also to foster independence and allow them to do more things for themselves and learn how to manage their independence better, and also modeling healthy relationships. Additional age-specific strategies are looking at limiting screen time, encouraging physical activity, and so it's the importance of physical health as well as mental health. It's always, balance is always the most important thing when you're teaching your children, and I mean in life in general. Again, if you model that, your children will follow suit. Provide opportunities for failure. This is so important. Your children need to learn that it's okay to fail. It's important, for example, if your child has a project due and they've left it for the last minute, don't swoop in and be the hero and do that project for them. Yes, it may mean that they may fail or they may get a much lower mark than they would like, but that's how they're going to learn. And from you allowing that to happen, they will then not make the same mistake next time. They will think about it better, they will plan their time better, or they will ask for help sooner, and then you can help them in whatever way is appropriate. But it is not appropriate for you to take over those responsibilities for your child because they are not learning anything from that, and they think that they can, that they won't understand failure as a whole. So it is really important for you to teach those skills. Practice gratitude at every opportunity that you can so that your children also learn to be gracious, and seek professional help when needed, as we've mentioned before. I know I'm not going into a lot of detail, but I'm also just very conscious of the time, and we still have a lot that we need to get through.
So challenges and solutions, obviously parenting can be stressful. So we want to manage our stress. We want to prioritize our self-care, prioritize activities that bring you joy and relaxation, because of course that, refills your cup. Balance your time. Time management is important. So balance your responsibilities with personal time. Make sure to make time for yourself as well. As Maya mentioned earlier, sometimes it's difficult for both of you to do it at the same time, but you can also, tap each other out, and one parent can have their personal time and the other parent takes responsibility, and then switch out afterwards. Build a support network. We're all in this together. We all know how difficult and how challenging parenting can be. So, build relationships with your family, with your friends, or join support groups where you can share resources and share tools that is helpful. Practice mindfulness techniques for yourself as well. And of course, seek help. You will notice that we're saying this throughout the presentation. Seek help when you need to, whether it is from friends or family or support group or a counselor or therapist, but just seek help when you need to. Consistency promotes predictability and stability. It is important to create routines and be consistent. When you establish routines, there's regular schedules for activities and things, setting clear boundaries, set and communicate clear expectations for your child, positive reinforcement, reward good behavior, be flexible, adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining consistency. Co-parenting alignment, again, very, very important. Ensure that both parents are on the same page. Then with meltdowns, those of us who are parents, we've all experienced this at some point in our life. We've experienced meltdowns from children. Meltdowns are normal, especially in younger children. Remember to stay calm, regulate your own emotions in order to help you de-escalate the situation. Show empathy to your child, validate their feelings, identify the triggers, anticipate and address underlying causes. I think sometimes also we forget, for example, with younger children, especially when they're younger, they're still in a routine like with sleep time and things like that. And so maybe there's a family function or there's a function you're going to, but it's 8 p.m., it's the child's sleep time. So obviously the child's going to become fussy and irritable, and they might have a meltdown. And so as a parent, I need to understand that I am interfering with my child's routine at the moment. So of course, they're going to feel it and they're going to show it. Children don't always have the language to express how they feel. So what do? They show it through their behavior. This is essentially what happens. And so I need to understand that I need to keep myself calm, regulate myself so that I can de-escalate the situation, validating and understanding what's happening for my child, and understand that it is the situation that is actually triggering this right now, and then teach them how to cope with that situation, and also provide comfort for the child in that moment by offering reassurance like a hug or something like that. And then power struggles, of course, this is going to happen. A child's job is to push the boundary, while a parent's job is to try to maintain the boundary. So there's definitely going to be power struggles at different points. Power struggles, they undermine the parental authority. So we need to set clear expectations, set clear rules and consequences for our children. Avoid the power struggles. Do not engage in arguments or negotiations if it's not done in a healthy way. Offer choices, so provide choices within reason for children. And of course, this can be applied differently at different ages. Model respect, as we said, treat children with respect if we expect them to treat us with respect. And then also, pick our battles wisely. As we do with our partners, we pick our battles wisely, focus on the important issues when it comes to children.
Okay, sorry about the slide stuff. My cat wants to be part of this presentation, so she keeps touching the computer. Okay, setting effective boundaries with your children is crucial for their development, well-being, and your relationship. We're just gonna discuss it in a bit more detail of why we should set boundaries. We should best set boundaries for your children. It establishes clear expectations, which leaves no room for confusion with regards to what is expected by you as a parent. It encourages responsibility and accountability rather than like an entitled attitude. It develops self-discipline and self-regulation, helping your child to problem solve and regulate their emotions in a healthy way. It enhances safety and security as they know their limits. We are going to go into this in more detail. It fosters healthy relationships and builds closer parent-child bonds as well. And it promotes independence as they will feel more confident about doing things for themselves. There are four different types of boundaries that we can set. First is physical, which teaches a child about consent and helps them keep safe. They learn that they have a right to decide what happens with or to their bodies, and that they have the right to say no and to communicate if they are feeling uncomfortable. It also teaches them respect for others' personal boundaries and personal space, and how to play with a gentle touch, as well as encouraging healthy physical relationships. Setting emotional boundaries is essential to help children develop emotional regulation, self awareness, and healthy relationships as well, by teaching them to express their feelings in a healthy way and how to be empathic to others' feelings and needs. It encourages children to learn how to take ownership of their emotions and actions. Learning to regulate their emotions also supports mental health, as it teaches them how to manage when feeling overwhelmed, anxious, or depressed. Behavioral boundaries is essential for their social, emotional, and cognitive development. Behavioral boundaries helps children understand what is expected of them, develop self-discipline, and learn responsibility. Age-appropriate rules and expectations should be established regarding household chores, screen time, curfews, bedtime, bath time, etc. Specific appropriate consequences should also be established for breaking boundaries, provide choices within reason to encourage decision making and to help build a sense of autonomy. For example, if your child is watching TV and you need them to go take a bath, you can give them three options where you can say, you can have 5 more minutes and then you need to go bath, or you can watch this episode to the end and then you can go bath, or you can say, we can pause and you can go bath and you can come back and you can finish it. That in that way, you're giving three options that you are comfortable with, but they also get to have a choice and they will feel like they have more autonomy, that they're being listened to and respected, and they're more likely to then comply with whatever decision they've made. Also, always explain the reasoning behind the boundaries, not because I said so. If they understand, you have more chance of having their buy-in. And also, if they are involved in deciding the chores, consequences, etc., there's more buy-in and more willingness. More importantly, model the behavior you expect from your children. No phones at the table, you doing your expected chores without your spouse needing to nag you about doing it, etc. And always acknowledge positive behavior. For example, I noticed that your room is looking really neat, or well done on cleaning the litter tray, etc. Okay, setting social boundaries is important also for helping your children develop healthy relations, self-respect, and emotional intelligence. Social boundaries protects your child from harm or exploitation. It teaches respect for others' feelings and space. It develops self-awareness and self-confidence. This is done by teaching respectful forms of communication, listening skills, friendship boundaries, and very importantly, digital boundaries as well. Always be open to discuss these topics with your children, as social situations are often the most challenging to navigate for them. Setting effective boundaries. With regards to setting effective boundaries, it's important to be consistent and patient as you help your child learn these skills. Modeling all of these healthy boundaries yourselves is one of the best ways of teaching your children, as we've mentioned multiple times, and it makes them more likely that they will be willing to follow your example or comply. It is also extremely important to review and adjust the boundaries as your children grow, as we mentioned, the different developmental stages. And Mariam will now discuss some age-specific strategies to setting boundaries.
I'm going to go through this a little quickly as I see we're running out of time, and I'd really like us to end with those last 2 slides. So I'm going to just go through this quickly. So again, as we mentioned earlier, different ages, you'll set different kinds of boundaries. So with toddlers, for example, age 1 to 3, you want to use simple, clear language, firm language, avoid complex sentences, and try and maintain a calm, gentle tone. Focus on what you want the child to do rather on what you don't want them to do. And as I mentioned earlier, we can use, set physical boundaries also with toddlers, like gates and fences and things. Establish routines and stick to them. Again, the consistency. Enforce consequences, for misbehavior. But again, be comfortable with the consequences. One of the issues we often find is that parents, they enforce consequences that they are not actually comfortable with, and so they don't mete it out, and this is problematic because it just undermines your own authority. So if you're going to set consequences, make sure there are consequences that you're actually comfortable with, and then redirect toddlers' attention to more acceptable behaviors. With preschoolers, again, you could use visual reminders. So, for example, have stop signs, wait signs, encourage self-regulation, like deep breathing, counting backwards when you're angry, set behavioral expectations, again, model the behavior, teach and practice the expectations that you want from your child. Next slide. And then for children of school-going age, so 6 to 12, involve your children in boundary setting. I think you'd have noticed that we've been saying this also all along. It is important to encourage your children to be included in these kind of conversations, have family meetings, and discuss what chores need to be done, what they think, what would be appropriate chores for them, what do they think would be good consequences for, whatever boundaries were set. Involve them in these kind of discussions because it also then encourages that independence. What is the fair rule for screen time? Let's create the chore list together. Encouraging independence, it fosters that self-reliance and confidence. It helps them with developing problem-solving and decision-making skills. And it also prepares children then for the next stage, which is adolescence and then adulthood. And then with teenagers, respect their autonomy. It acknowledges their growing independence and encourages self-expression and individuality. Knock before entering their room, for example. Teach them again or model expressing needs and wants in a respectful way and how to negotiate them. Involve them in rules, ask them for their input. Again, set clear expectations because this provides structure and predictability. It helps them understand the responsibilities, but also encourages accountability. Highlight that we need to be accountable for, for different things. Establish clear rules and communicate it clearly. And again, if you want your child to be open with you, you need to model and be open with them. Set things clearly and consistently, set boundaries for technology use, for example, define household chores, for example, and as Sumaya mentioned, review and revise expectations regularly. Encourage open communication. It fosters trust and understanding. It helps teenagers feel heard and validated and encourages emotional intelligence and self-awareness. Give full attention to their concerns, listen actively to what they have to say, validate the emotions, acknowledge and create a comfortable space for them to speak to you. And as always, consistency is key. And then just some common challenges that we find is, as we mentioned, is inconsistency. Inconsistency in parenting styles, rules, or consequences. It confuses children. It undermines the authority of the parents. It encourages misbehavior and it creates anxiety for the child. The power struggles occur when children resist the parental authority, and this, of course, is fueled by inconsistent boundaries, lack of clear expectations, over-controlling behavior by parents, and the child's need for control. This then creates conflict in the relationship. It undermines parental authority, encourages defiance, and damages relationships. And then overindulgence, it involves providing excessive freedom, material possessions, or attention. This creates a sense of entitlement for the child, undermines self-discipline, encourages selfishness, and damages relationships. fear or guilt of disappointing the child is often, and lack of communication is why sometimes parents overindulge their children. And then lastly, lack of communication involves inadequate or ineffective communication. This can occur when there are busy schedules, when there's emotional reactivity of the parents, lack of active listening or poor communication skills. It creates misunderstandings, it undermines trust and encourages misbehavior, and again damages the relationship. And of course, as I've been mentioning, all of these things, they contribute to the child's development for them in the outside world. So if we are not able to model and create the healthy development inside the home, it means the child is really going to struggle outside of the home.
Some strategies to overcome challenges experienced when practicing positive parenting: always communicate clearly, be calm and patient, understand that your child is learning new skills and that this takes time. Don't expect them to conform to new rules quickly and easily. You really need to give them some time and understanding and support. As Mariam mentioned earlier, using I statements is extremely beneficial as the child doesn't feel berated, belittled, or shamed, but it promotes understanding as to how you are feeling about the behavior and why you would need them to change the behavior. For example, I feel frustrated when toys are left on the floor. Please put them away. I'm worried you may get hurt when crossing the street, so please hold my hand. With slightly older children, it's like, I feel disrespected when you touch my things without permission. Please ask before you do that. Or I feel disrespected when you interrupt me or talk back to me. Let's discuss respectfully. Or I'm worried about your well-being. Let's talk about your plans. Always deal with it from a respectful perspective. As mentioned earlier, take moments to acknowledge when your child has been following the rules and respecting the boundaries, compliment them and show them that their efforts do not go unnoticed and that they are appreciated. Positive reinforcement has amazing benefits. We also discussed setting clear consequences and following through on those consequences. Remember, like Mariam mentioned slightly, is that the consequences must fit the boundary breaking and it cannot be too excessive. This is why including your child in the decision making can be helpful, but you can negotiate. And ultimately, it must be set by you so you maintain the parental role and their respect. And seeking support is extremely beneficial, and that can be obtained in many different forms. Mariam will share some multiple options and resources.
I see we're already on 9 o'clock, so I'm just going to quickly read through parent-child interaction therapy, positive parenting program, parenting from the inside out. Also, I just want to mention, I don't know if parents are aware of the movie Inside Out, but it's such a good movie actually for teaching children, young children especially, about emotions, the different kinds of emotions and how they operate. And it's quite accurate. I think they had a psychologist who actually gave input. So the information in there is actually very accurate. And I find not only for younger children, but also for older children and for older adults, that they found the movie quite useful for understanding how the emotions work. The whole brainchild, positive parenting, parenting with love and logic, unconditional parenting, how to talk so kids will listen, raising resilient children, the resilience breakthrough, boundaries with kids, parenting forums. Of course, on social media platforms, there are multiple resources. There are different forums, there are different support networks on places like Facebook, on Reddit, on Instagram. So find reputable pages and follow them because they often share tips and things. And then parenting blogs and websites as well can be quite useful. But I think we will be sharing slides, and so all the information will be in there, so you'll have access to this. I saw that someone asked for our contact details. We will also leave this with Students Connected. We'll leave our contact details with them, with the info pack. So the slides we will share as well, and then and so you'll have access to it once they send it out, inshallah.
Okay. Shukran Jazilan for attending our webinar. We appreciate each of you for taking time. We tried our best to stay within the time, but there is so much more we could have shared, to be honest. This is just the basics. As Mariam said, we will be sharing the slides from part 1 and part 2. So you will have access to this information, especially the resources pages and everything else. And we'll share our contact details with Muslims Connected. So if you have more questions, if anything you need clarification on, we'd be more than happy to. I see we don't have any questions, so I will just give it a few minutes to see if anybody would like to ask any questions. And if not,
See, there's one question about the recordings of session 1 and 2. Yes, both recordings will be on the YouTube channel. Part 1 is there. Part 2 will be there as well. So you would be able to also go back if you missed anything, or if you want to just recap again or watch it and just take down notes or anything, it will be on YouTube.
Yes, it's on the Muslims Connected YouTube page. So please feel free to go ahead and look at that. Okay. All right. I think if there's no other questions, we can conclude tonight's presentation. Shukran again for your attendance. Really appreciate it. And like I said, if there's anything, any other questions that you have that come up, we will be more than happy to answer it personally. I see someone. Yes.
It's one question, yeah. I'll read the question to you. Examples of positive reinforcements. Is it also healthy to do both, offer a combination of negative and positive reinforcements at the same time? You want to answer that quickly?
Yeah, so there's no such thing. It's not negative reinforcement. We stay away from negative reinforcement. We're only talking about positive reinforcement. And if your child, I don't know if you're asking about consequences, that should only be brought up if you see that your child is not following through on the boundaries that you have set. Then you can discuss. When you creating like rules, so if you have a chore chart and things like that, at that time, yes, you can discuss what consequences will be if they don't, 3 times, if this is not done, and then this is going to be the result of it, for example. But definitely, yeah, you're not going to be discussing positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement. The focus is on positive reinforcement. Okay, I see we're getting questions coming in. Value the prophetic model in teaching parents. Yes, alhamdulillah. My daughter is autistic and ADHD, and I was told to try behavioral therapy. How will this therapy assist both her and myself? Both Mariam and I are cognitive behavioral therapists. Behavioral therapy is very beneficial when working with neurodiverse children because it helps give structure and more detail around how for you to understand your specific child's needs, because that's why we call it the neurodiverse spectrum, because every child is different. We are hoping to do another talk that focuses specifically on the neurodiverse child and those needs. So inshallah, we will do that in coming weeks. And yeah, but like I said, behavioral therapy looks specifically at providing specific skills and structure for your specific child's needs. So it helps you understand your child's needs and gives you those specific things. Afwan to everybody who.
Yeah, there's another question around doing seminars for adults on the interactions in our childhood trauma and how to fix us in adulthood. That it's also very important. I think that what might be a good idea is that if there are any specific topics that you are interested in as the audience, please do submit those to Muslims Connected, because I think there are, we're constantly working on these webinars. So I'm sure they would be open to hearing what are the kind of topics that people are actually interested in, and we can definitely work on it, inshallah.
I did also previously do a talk on intergenerational trauma, which does look at, I'm not sure if it is still available on the Muslims Connected YouTube. We can check that for you. But yes, that we have done that talk. So that would actually speak to what you're asking with regards to the adults' interaction and how it affects you. So if you are able to find that, or contact Muslims Connected and ask them to share that link with you if it's not on the YouTube page. Okay. Did I miss anything, Mariam, or is that everything for now?
That is everything for now.
Okay. Afwan. Shukran again to everyone for attending. We really appreciate it, and we look forward to the next one. And any questions that you have, please feel free to email either Mariam or myself, and we will be more than happy to answer. Shukran. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.